Hello and welcome to Too Many Movies, the podcast where we discuss DVDs, Blu-rays, and even the occasional VHS tape. I'm your host, Hal, and with me here today is Mr. Bamason!
Oh my god, I was hoping you wouldn't do that.
Oh, come on, it's like my favorite gif. Listen, it's the best thing to come out of The Matrix Resurrections, and I'm not joking when I say that.
I still haven't watched it.
Well, good. Don't. It's bad. But look, we could talk about an embarrassing legacy nostalgia baity sequel made by Warner Brothers, but we instead have to talk about a different embarrassing legacy sequel, nostalgia baity cash grab sequel made by Warner Brothers instead. Well, this isn't really a sequel. Who cares? It's The Flash. We're talking about The Flash.
The Flash.
It's flashing time.
He flashed the children.
Oh, I have been looking forward to this for a long time. Like, honestly, I mean, let's be real. A Flash movie was always going to happen. You know, DC was always going to make something with Ezra Miller's Flash eventually, but I wasn't truly excited for this until everybody else started to think it was going to be bad, because that's when my interest went up. I was like, all right, here we go. Like, we're about to experience a shitstorm that we've never ever seen before. But yeah, before we get into all that, Bamason, let's start things off. What did you think of The Flash 2023?
I thought it was not great.
I'm shocked.
Shocking. I disagree with James Gunn and for some fucking reason Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
It's not the greatest superhero movie of all time, but then again, it's not like Suicide Squad where it's like horrible, but it's like not great overall. Yeah.
How could James Gunn lie to us? The head of DC, why would he not say it's the best thing? Why would he say it's the best thing in the world? I just can't wrap my head around that.
You really think someone would do that? Just go on the internet and tell lies?
Unheard of. I really can't fathom that. Yeah, no.
Unbelievable.
I'm with you. It's bad. It's not very good. I was really expecting like a gigantic failure, and in ways it is a gigantic messy failure that I wholeheartedly am just baffled by. But I can't really say, like you said, it's not Suicide Squad levels. I really can't say this is like the worst movie I've ever seen in my life. Like,
yeah, there's like good stuff in it.
I think there's nuggets of good stuff and nuggets of hilariously bad stuff. And so I can't really say, and I mean, that's taking into account the DCEU's track record. I mean, listen, there have been some real bad movies in this franchise.
Oh yeah.
So the badness, I guess maybe that's a part of it. It's like the badness is not really all that shocking when you get down to it, because listen, this is the same franchise as Suicide Squad and Justice League and Black Adam. So, like, you know, we're kind of used to these awful, awful movies that have nothing going for them in the slightest when it comes to, like, actually being good. With that said, it does do some things that are much worse than what we've seen in the DCEU. And, I mean, I don't know. It's weird, you know? It's just such a weird movie that you're kind of just confused as to what it's actually trying to do. Because it's trying to be a reboot in real time. Like, it's trying to reset everything, so then moving forward we have a different universe for DC. But, you know, the universe that it was a part of beforehand, the Snyderverse / DCEU, was never really that consistent anyway. So you're like, okay, how is this different than what we've seen before? You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, like, I don't think this is like the movie that's gonna reboot the DCEU. I think they're just going to completely start from scratch with Superman Legacy. Because like there's spoilers for the Flash for any of you that there's no way they're gonna keep George Clooney as Batman in Brave and the Bold.
Well, I thought that was mostly just a joke. Like, you know, just him showing up. I thought that was just a joke, but oh yeah.
No, it was there's no fucking way they're gonna keep him around.
No fucking way. Absolutely not. Well, I want to start off things with at the very beginning. Maybe even like before the beginning, actually. Let's talk about like the absolute build up to this movie. So like I was saying, like, you know, Flash was always going to have a movie. And it's like, okay, whatever. And then like rumors started coming out that like it was going to be a Flashpoint movie. And it's like, okay, that would be kind of cool because Flashpoint is kind of a cool story for Flash. Then a little movie called No Way Home came out, and DC saw that and was like, holy shit, we need one of those for us. And thus they were like, hey, we can do that with the Flashpoint movie. So it's like, okay, great. Now it's just going to be a cameo fest. Fantastic. And it's like, great. I'm so looking forward to that. But then, oh, baby, the Ezra Miller debacle started.
Debacles plural.
Debacles plural.
Like
so,
he had debacles like way before the big ones, because like in like I remember in like 2020 he beat up someone and I think he choked a fan.
Yeah, he like choked a fan. They got it on camera because the fan was just like, I don't remember the whole story, but he's just like, oh, you don't think I can choke you? It's like, what a weird interaction that was.
Yeah, really, surely it's a one-time thing.
Yeah, surely it's a one-time thing. Uh-oh.
It wasn't.
It was not. Then, I mean, the short of it is that, you know, Ezra just went on a whole crime spree in Hawaii and was on the run and just beating up people, throwing chairs at karaoke singers. It was a whole...
He kidnapped someone.
They kidnapped someone. It was a whole other movie in and of itself. Just this absolute psychopath, just losing their mind, going on this tread of debauchery. And, well, let's be real, that's kind of not good. And so when Warner Brothers realized that they can't just hide all this, they're just like, well, shit, there goes one of our biggest movies because our main actor is going on a crime spree. And so that's around the time that I actually was like very much looking forward to The Flash. Not because obviously I'm not an advocate for going on a crime spree in Hawaii. Let me just say that right now. But, like, that's when I knew, holy shit, they're not canceling The Flash. They're going to keep going. They're going to keep it going because they've put so much time and effort into this. But, like, nobody's going to want to go see a movie with a dude like Ezra Miller as the main character unless they really do something spectacularly insane. And that's when I was like, holy shit, this Flash movie is going to be something special. You know, because... you know, the whole Flash movie beforehand was going to be a cameo fest, let's be real. Like, after something like No Way Home, DC was going to do that, but worse. But now, they were I knew they were going to amp it up to, like, 11 this time, because it's like, they are so desperate for their W that they will do anything. And not just the Flash stuff, you know, Black Adam was just such an embarrassing flop that Warner Brothers just needed something. So like, and obviously the past 10 years have not really helped their you know, it hasn't really helped their status in the studio, among the studios. So like, of course, just all of these different things coming together to really push the Flash to be that big hit that they need, and it still failed. Like this is insanity. I have never seen a movie like this being this big of a failure on this level. Like, it's fascinating. I am
the scale is just huge.
It's so huge. It's so huge. Like, this is honestly, like, considering the amount of effort that went into pushing this thing, it's much bigger of a failure than Morbius was, I would think. I mean, because really think about it. Morbius failed because it had nothing, whereas this failed despite it having everything. Like, everything in this movie could have pushed it to being such a huge hit, but it still failed. Like, that needs to be studied in future film classes for sure.
This needs to be like analyzed in how not to market and make a movie.
Yeah,
it's so fascinating.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like a car accident. You can't really look away.
Yeah, no, you can't. We should get into specifics of like why this is such a failure. So let's start off with the very first scene where Barry is saving a bunch of falling babies out of a hospital.
It's literally a baby shower.
Oh my god!
They make that pun in the movie.
Oh, did they? I missed that. But you know what?
Like when the babies first fall out of the window, Alfred is like, "There's a baby," and then Ezra, and then I almost said Ezra. Fuck it. Ezra says shower.
That is so unfunny. It comes back around to being funny. And I mean, honestly, that whole sequence, first of all, shot terribly, just awful CGI, you know, as is expected. But like, man, it was art, man. Just watching Ezra Miller in this rubbery CGI suit running at top speed, going to save these babies, just throwing them in the air, punching a vending machine, eating a bunch of shit, putting that baby in the microwave. I was like, my god, this is modern art. It was fantastic. I loved every second of it. I was crying. It was so funny.
I was crying and I came and I shit.
Yeah, exactly. All of those things. It was beautiful. And
don't forget when he put the baby in the microwave.
It was glorious. It was so glorious. I was like, my god, somebody animated this thing. Well, I'm sure the animators were animating it being like, my god, I'm being paid a penny for this, and this is what it looks like, and I'm gonna get the blame.
Somebody wrote this in the first place.
Somebody wrote this. Yeah, somebody wrote this thinking that was going to be an epic scene, or hilariously epic. I don't know. It was in some ways, but not in the way that they thought. Like, that's what makes it just such a fantastic sequence for me. Like, it was beautiful. I was like, my god, just watching Ezra Miller, known psychopathic criminal, putting a baby in a microwave in a major Hollywood studio movie. There's something special about that. There really is.
It's magical.
It's magical.
Really magical.
Yeah. And then the rest of the movie happens, and you're just like, sometimes there's something really funny, but then other times it's like, wow, this is trying to be real. Okay, I guess that's kind of commendable, but at the same time, I kind of, you know, want you to be as crazy as possible, but whatever, you know, the rest of the movie's fine. I don't know. What did you think of you talk about a scene that you thought was fine or whatever?
I thought some of the action was, when the effects were properly done, I thought some of the action was pretty fun.
Yeah.
Like I thought the desert fight scene where the two Barrys were like beating up the Kryptonian army, that was pretty fun, and it was very visually well done, especially like I mentioned this before, but like the different colors of like the lightning, how original Barry is like orange and yellow and the other Barry is like blue. It creates like a really good contrast.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
I thought that was really visually well done.
You really struggling there.
I thought Supergirl was pretty good, mostly because I simp for the actress Sasha Cal. I have no idea how to say her name, but my god, she is.
I'm going to be honest. I really did not know what to think of Supergirl. Like, I was, expecting her to be more of a major character, and then she kind of just shows up and does nothing. I'm like, oh, they didn't even really try with her, did they? Like,
yeah, she beats up Zod for like a good 5 minutes, and then she like dies several times.
Yeah, exactly. Like, okay, wow, what a use for a character. Like, it was just so dumb, like, who is this character? Also, how does the timeline line up with her? Because it's like, okay, she was sent to like track down Clark, or no, was she sent at the same time as Clark? Because like, well, she would have had to have been, because Krypton was then destroyed, but like, she's the same age but also older, but also like Clark was already found by Zod, but like, why did Zod like go to Earth like at that time? Like, the timeline does not make any sense.
I think it's because like, how in the original Man of Steel they need Kal-El for his like codec in his blood, to terraform. In this timeline, I don't think baby Kal-El had that codec, and I think he came to Earth because Supergirl had it.
Right. Well, so, but he says like, we need Kal-El for the codec, but then he says we already found Kal-El. He did not have the codex in his blood. It's like, okay, so then you didn't need Kal-El. It was okay. So Supergirl was her role was that she was sent to track down Kal-El and oversee him. That was never established in Man of Steel. I'm okay. Maybe it's a different timeline. Sure.
Yeah.
But then, okay, what was the point of sending Kal-El out if he didn't have the codex in him, and the codex was instead in Supergirl? How does that make any sense? Like, what was the point of sending Kal-El then? Look, I never thought I'd say this, but Man of Steel explained this a little better. It's like, so stupid, but
the foundation needs to be built on something.
Yeah. Terrible CGI skulls. Can we just get right into talking about Michael Keaton?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Yeah. He sure was in this movie.
Yeah, he sure was. I honestly have nothing to say about him. I thought the scene where he first puts on the Batman suit, where he like walks into the Batcave, I thought he looks really fucking stupid.
Well, yeah, he does. Well, so this kind of ties into my thing. So and this really bothered me. So I recently rewatched both Tim Burton, Michael Keaton movies. They're really good. And we'll talk about, the first one later on. But, one thing I definitely appreciate about those movies is their unique and iconic style to them. Like, they have a style to them that is just so breathtaking and unique and so totally Tim Burton that I can't imagine Michael Keaton's Batman technically taking place in the same universe as Zack Snyder's Man of Steel. And that's what this movie's trying to communicate. Because really the architecture in Tim Burton's Gotham does not translate to being the kind of architecture and then Man of Steel Metropolis. You know what I'm saying? Like, they don't really fit. Now, with that said, you could make the argument, oh, this is a different timeline where Michael Keaton's Batman just so happens to be in a universe where then it turns into Man of Steel Metropolis. It's like, okay, by that logic, then this is not the Michael Keaton we know and love. So what are we truly nostalgic for then? If this isn't the same guy.
Why does he say the Michael Keaton stuff?
Yeah, exactly. Like, okay, so it's like the same guy So it's essentially the same character, but like in a different universe, in which case, okay, that's not the character we grew up with then. So we don't have any nostalgic attachment to this guy. And yet the movie still wants you to have that nostalgic attachment by playing Danny Elfman's Batman theme like several times in the movie. It's like, okay, you clearly want me to view this guy as the same character, but because you're putting him in a universe that does not mesh well with the original movies that he was in, I don't feel anything because I know now, okay, this is a different character then. So it's so tonally inconsistent, and no matter how you look at it, it doesn't work. It's like, I know why they brought him back, purely for the nostalgia, but even then, they don't do a good job at establishing that nostalgia, you know?
Yeah, I think what also doesn't work is how those two different Batmen are like portrayed in like action scenes.
Mm-hmm.
Like in the original Batman, he's like very stoic and very brutal with his fighting, and in this and in the Flash, he's just like flying and doing quips. Like before he jumps down that hole in the Russian shaft, he's just like, this is gonna hurt.
Yeah, it's like, look, Batman, Michael Keaton Batman was not really known for his quips. Like, the best thing he ever said, quip-wise, was in the second movie when Catwoman went up to him and was like, I haven't eaten all day, and he goes, eat floor, and like smashes her head on the floor. It's like, that was the highlight of Batman quips from Michael Keaton. So he's not known for that kind of stuff.
I think eat floor just is so funny out of context.
It's so good. It's so good. And then there's that weird scene when they're in the Russian base and like they see that one guy and like Michael Keaton Batman does like the whole like moves to like scare the guy and he doesn't move.
Yeah, that was so strange.
Yeah.
That's like so out of character for him.
Yeah, it's like unless this was a goofier version of the character, but again, they don't want to necessarily deviate from that because they want you to feel nostalgic for this character. But again, it's not the same character because you're putting him in a different universe. So like it's at odds with itself and it can't decide on where to go. And in which case it's stuck in this awkward, not really familiar, just boring version. And also Michael Keaton clearly doesn't want to be there. You know, yeah, he's just like so
I don't think
bored.
anyone wants to be. You know what?
No.
You know who else doesn't want to be there?
Well, anybody really.
Well, Michael Shannon.
Well,
Michael Shannon especially just does not want to be there.
Look, I can badmouth Man of Steel all the time, all day long. I do not like that movie at all. But there are things I like about Man of Steel, and one of those things is Michael Shannon as Zod. Like, when I rewatched Man of Steel recently, I was like, you know what? I do really appreciate Michael Shannon in this movie because he's clearly giving it his all. He clearly has passion for this character. He's performing. Like, he's giving this performance, and you know, you really feel that. Whereas here in this movie, he couldn't care less to be there. And it's like, okay, that's not Zod. Like, Zod, played by Michael Shannon, is this insane weirdo who's screaming all the time, and in here he looks like he just woke up from a nap. So
he's just
yeah. And it's the same thing as Michael Keaton's Batman. Like, yes, it is the same actor portraying the same character, but that doesn't equal it being the same character, because I don't see this new Michael Keaton or even this new Zod, because I don't see them as the same character as the other versions. You know, it's the same reason why I don't really see older Han or older Luke as those characters that I grew up with in the Star Wars sequels. Like,
yeah, it's just like the different writers have just like made their versions of that character, which just doesn't mesh well with the other incarnations.
Exactly. There has only been one time that I can think of where a character returns to a role 20 years later, and I feel like they still got it, and that is Willem Dafoe in No Way Home. The absolute second I saw him when he showed up in No Way Home, I'm like, God damn it, that's Norman Osborn. That is the only time that has ever happened and it actually worked. Other times, it's just the actor coming back being like, yep, I'm here, and you're just supposed to buy it as the same character. It never
there
works.
He is.
Yeah, there he is.
There was also the one scene I also thought was really good, though. I think it was the best scene in the movie, was probably the end scene where Barry says bye to his mom. Like, in a movie that just doesn't in a movie that just doesn't have any like good drama, it has like that scene like just weirdly works, and it's like weirdly I'm not gonna cry over it, like, come on, but it's like weirdly emotionally it works.
I mean, here's the thing. There are some really good scenes in theory in this movie. I like the idea that there is two Barrys, like one of them is the older version and then the other one is the younger version, and I like how they're kind of clashing, because Barry, the older version, he's been kind of like this childish character. Childish in quotes in these movies, you know, as childish as the DCEU would allow him to be. But like, now when he's dealing with a younger version of himself, you kind of see him starting to mature. Obviously, none of this is translated very well, and I'm kind of pissed because, well, that's not necessarily the movie's fault. It is, because it's not written well, but like, you definitely feel like, because the older movies were also terrible, that like it didn't really have a lot to work with. And I will agree, though, that that scene where he sees his mom for the last time, it's like, in any other movie, in a much better written movie, yes, this scene would hit much harder. But I can see what it's going for. But again, because the rest of the movie is just not there yet, I don't feel like it's earned it all. And so it's just kind of like this weird goodbye scene, and you're just like, I should feel something, but I don't. And
yeah, it's like, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I'm just saying, like, it's just this weird scene that like I don't feel anything for it, and so, you know, I'm kind of left just scratching my head at it, you know.
Yeah, it's like a scene that was like shot way before with like a complete, more tonally appropriate script. And after all the reshoots and all the different stuff, they kept the scene as is, so it just makes the whole thing so jarring.
Well, the other frustrating thing about that scene is, well, there's a couple of things. One, it was spoiled in their Mother's Day marketing for the movie, where they're just
that was like, what the hell?
Tell your mother you love her, and it's just the scene of her, and it's just, and then you watch the movie and you're like, you motherfuckers, this is supposed to be a scene in the climax, and you just ruined it. Like, you're so stupid. But also, it's just like, okay, Barry goes back to fix everything, to put the tomatoes back. It's like, okay, so now he's learned not to mess with the timeline, but he still talks to her. It's like, okay, that's still messing with the timeline, Barry. Like, did the movie learn nothing?
Well, there's also another like massive plot hole in the thing. So like, remember how like in the store the tomatoes were on like the bottom shelf, and they couldn't like place the dad there because he couldn't look up at the camera?
Yeah.
So that means that Barry moved the cans of tomatoes from the bottom shelf to the top shelf, thereby messing with time again. And there's another part in the grocery store where he looks up directly at the camera. So
and
so there's
and the movie never calls that out. Like,
and after the movie, like when they're in the courtroom, they have like the tape of they have the security tape from the store. You would think that they would see Barry there and just be like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, exactly. Like, what the fuck? Like, this is so stupid. And also, like, you know, Barry knows not to mess with time because, well, he had this spiel with Ben Affleck at the beginning. Like, you know, he's telling him, hey, don't mess with time. and yet he still does it. But also, like, he learns halfway through the movie, like, oh, this Batman also had an Alfred, which means, fate. So, like, the theme of the movie is some things you just can't change. There's fate you have to take into account. Sometimes just things will never play out the way you want them. In which case, you learn you can't mess with time. But, like, halfway through the movie, he has that scene where he's like, hey, you had an Alfred too. I guess that means you guys were always destined to be together no matter what universe it is. Maybe that's fate. And then during the climax, when he realizes he can't defeat Zod and his army, he can't save Batman or Supergirl, that's when he decides to then be like, oh, it was fate. It's like, motherfucker, you figured this out halfway through the movie, but you're reflecting on it now?
Christ.
Like,
my brother in Christ, you came to this conclusion 50 minutes ago.
Exactly. Like, what? And I get it, like, they want that scene so then he can be like, oh, you had an Alfred too, like, to remind Michael Keaton of why he was Batman. But then it's like, again, like, you're letting him figure out the theme, but then he doesn't reflect upon it until halfway through. That's terrible, terrible screenwriting. Like, that's not how you do it. It's so broken. Speaking of broken, we might as well talk about the climax when every other character comes in the multiverse, right? Like,
all right.
That's why this movie was made. It was that very specific sequence. That's why this movie was made, so they could have other characters show up from other DC properties. And it's embarrassing.
It's probably it's probably the first scene that was written for the movie. Yeah.
Well, here's the frustrating thing. It's like, okay, this is the scene I was expecting from this kind of movie. It's like, immediately once Ezra Miller started going on a crime spree and Warner Brothers was doubling down on it, it's like, okay, they're gonna make something like this multiverse scene. They're gonna have a scene where, like, I don't know, the Flash is like running through different timelines and he like ends up in like different DC properties. Isn't that going to be funny? But this movie doesn't do that. What happens is, so the way he runs through time is he runs in this Coliseum like thing where like all the rows are like different moments in time, which is really strange, but okay, whatever, I'll allow it. But then he can see other worlds being ripped apart, and that's what the multiverse is. It's like you can like there's like these different globes of different timelines, and they're being ripped apart, and so then the characters can like look on, and that's all it is just characters looking on at Barry in the multiverse. Like, what? That's your
at him.
That is your response to No Way Home? Like, are you kidding me? Like, that is unbelievably lame. Like,
No Way Home had Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, all these different great characters. What did this movie have? Nick Cage Superman.
Like, it's mind-boggling. So there's that scene where, like, you go into the Christopher Reeve Superman world, and Christopher Reeve Superman, sorry, CGI Christopher Reeve Superman, because remember, the dude's dead. He like flies over to the space-time continuum hole that's ripping in his reality. Then Helen Slater Supergirl, CGI Helen Slater Supergirl also flies over, because remember, they're in the same universe, even though they've never interacted with each other. And they just stare at this hole with indifference. It's like, my God, you don't understand these characters at all. Like, you have this world-ending scenario where your universe is just ripping apart and imploding on itself. And all you have this very heroic, very likable character do is stare on in indifference. It's like, yeah, I get it. It's Christopher Reeve. He's not alive anymore, so you can't do anything with him. But, like, that begs the question, why is he here? And then you have Adam West Batman, who's just kind of there in his universe. He looks on with indifference.
He's just off in his little globe thing.
Yeah. And then Nick Cage Superman. Sorry, CGI Nick Cage Superman is fighting a giant spider, and then he looks on with indifference. It's like...
I'm just so confused. Out of all the fucking unmade DC properties, they went with Nick Cage Superman?
I mean, look, I would have preferred if they just had Nick Cage play a role in this movie, like, as Superman. Like, that would have been funny. But no, that requires effort. And they just wanted to go with the path of least resistance. So they're like, hey, Nick Cage, can we use your likeness for a movie? And he's like, yeah, okay, whatever. I'm too busy filming Willy's Wonderland at the moment. I'm too busy
filming Renfield 2.
Yeah, Renfield 2. So then they just put his face on the CGI body, and then he looks on, again, with indifference. And then George Reeves' Superman shows up. Hey, for you kids out there who have no idea what the fuck we're talking about, in the 1940s and 50s, they did serials on Superman, and the actor who played him was a guy named George Reeves,
and who unfortunately
might have killed himself in 1959. You want to know what day in 1959? June 16th. Exactly the day that The Flash came out in theaters in 2023. They released a movie that has a CGI'd George Reeves, a man who might have killed himself over being incredibly depressed after being typecasted as Superman, and now he is forever in this movie as a CGI'd Superman. You can't make this shit up. I'm speechless. I am speechless at the lack of self-awareness here. It is this year's Chip and Dale, where they just mock the death of some actor who died tragically. Now, much like Chip and Dale, I highly doubt this was intentional. I highly doubt Warner Brothers intentionally did this with malintent against George Reeves. But it is still such a lack of self-awareness that you're just like, this is incredible. You are just batting 1,000 here, Warner Brothers. How could you have been so ignorant? Oh my God.
They were supposed to, they were originally going to release this like a week later, and then they moved it back up to the 16th.
I can't. It's just
all they had to do was just wait a week, and it's just how does this happen?
How does this happen this embarrassingly? Like, again, this is your response to No Way Home? Just a bunch of dead actors looking on from a bunch of CGI like trick cereal balls? Like, what are you doing? Like, this is not what people want to see. Like, if you're going to include other DC characters, do so in a very unique sort of way. But no, they do it in the lamest way possible.
I would have loved a whole movie where Nick Cage Superman takes Michael Keaton's role, honestly.
If anything.
that would have been different.
Yeah, if anything. Look, I'm not saying, I'm not saying these cameos should have been in the movie. Obviously, you want to write a good story, first of all. I'm just saying there's better ways to do this. Like, I would not be this pissed off had I not seen something like No Way Home. Like, No Way Home showed me that you can write a good movie and have incredibly obvious fan service. Like, you can have the best of both worlds.
There's also Spider-Verse.
Well, Spider-Verse, Spider-Verse, exactly. That's an even better example. And especially because this came out around the time of Across the Spider-Verse, which is even more unfortunate. Like, Across the Spider-Verse knew how to implement its cameos better than this movie did. It's like, yeah, if anything, yeah, you would write them in more clever ways, but they didn't. And you know what? It wouldn't be such a problem also because they CGI'd all these cameos because Adam West is dead, Christopher Reeve is dead, fucking George Reeves is dead. Like, these actors are long gone, and yet they felt the need to include them out of all other actors you could have implemented. It's just like
literally, it's just so confusing.
it's so confusing, but so hilarious at the same time. Like, I am just baffled by this movie and its constant need to just fuck up. Like, not only was it a fuck up before it even came out, like even before this movie came out, I knew this was going to be a gigantic clusterfuck. But now we get to see this as a gigantic clusterfuck in real time, and you're just like, wow, this was basically just Time and Punishment, that Simpsons Treehouse of Horror short, but much worse. Like, I'm so baffled. I'm so speechless. Is there anything else you wanted to say? I feel like there's a couple of things I guess I could mention.
There's also Dark Flash, which is probably the lamest villain I've ever seen.
Yeah. So
any fucking superhero movie.
So obviously this is sort of based off of Flashpoint, and the main villain of that is Reverse Flash, but Reverse Flash never plays a role in this movie because I guess that was too much work and effort. So they make it Dark Flash, which I kind of figured it was going to be future Barry, you know, like especially like when young Barry like is like going back and he starts like getting shit like stabbed through him. It's like, oh, okay, so he's Dark Flash. And then he just reveals himself and he's just like this dude who's like covered in all this shit and he has purple eyes. That wasn't Ezra Miller though, was it? Like,
who was that know. Guy? I think it was, and they just applied some light makeup and did some aging digitally.
Yeah. But like
with how much they're willing to bring back actors from the dead with CGI and CGI all of this, I wouldn't be shocked if they just digitally aged Ezra Miller by like 50 years.
Yeah, it was so like I knew what they were doing, but I was still confused by how they were doing it, because it's just like, come on guys, like, and I feel like it could work, like the whole, you know, future villain. I saw someone mention this is pretty much just the same twist as Lightyear.
Oh my god,
I'm gonna be completely honest, I think this movie does it a little better though, because I feel I can buy Ezra Miller's Flash becoming the villain later down the line. So like, whereas
honestly,
Lightyear, it completely came out of nowhere. So good job, Flash. You did something better than Lightyear, I suppose. Like, woohoo. Yeah, good. Yeah, pat yourself on the back for that one. But
you're
like
just slightly better than Lightyear.
Yeah, slightly better than Lightyear. Good job. I liked I liked at first the idea that like, oh, this universe is different than yours because Eric Stoltz plays Marty McFly, and it's like, oh, that's a funny one-off joke, but then they kept pushing it, and it's like, and he's like, no, Eric Stoltz is not Marty McFly, and then like they have this whole 5-minute scene of them arguing, and it's like, Barry, you're at a computer, just look up Back to the Future and you'd see that it says Eric Stoltz, but no, he looks at a guy's tattoo on his shin that's of Eric Stoltz as Marty McFly, and that's how he's convinced. It's like, okay, you had the most obvious time travel joke in the world, and you still fucked it up. Like, how do you do that? Like,
that's like a magical kind of, just like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Again, I know the joke going in, because guess what? I am a huge Back to the Future fan. Like, I get the joke, and you still treated me like a dumbass, like I wouldn't get the joke by over-explaining it. It's like, I get it. Eric Stoltz is Marty McFly. I get it. It's so stupid. It's like, haha, you don't have to keep pushing it and make it a 5-minute scene of you arguing with other people. It's just like, and again, you're at a computer, just look up Back to the Future and see that it's Eric Stoltz. It's like, okay, now I understand. It's a different universe. Blah, 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 blah. It's so easy, and they screw it up so badly.
I think it's just like, also, Barry would know that this was supposed to be like an no, wait, no, he wouldn't.
Well, even then, it's just like, okay, like if like other Barry is so sure about it, like he has to understand that, oh, maybe some things are different here. Like you kind like, I don't know, like it's just such an easy thing to figure out, but like they still make it into a 5-minute scene of him trying to figure it out. It's like, dude, like come on, keep up. Like I, as the audience member, know it's different immediately when he says Eric Stoltz. It's like, oh, this is a different universe, and you know, the cogs in my wheels are able to figure that out pretty simply. And again, because I'm a major Back to the Future fan, I know that yes, originally Eric Stoltz was gonna play Marty McFly. They filmed for 5 weeks. They didn't like how it was looking, and so they immediately replaced him with Michael J. Fox, because Michael J. Fox was always supposed to be Marty McFly, but because of his scheduling conflicts with Family Ties, I believe it was, he wasn't able to get the role originally. But then once they actually were able to strike a deal, then on the weekends he filmed Back to the Future, and during the week he filmed Family Ties. I'm sorry I'm going on this tangent on Back to the Future lore, but again, like,
the movie
Back to the Future is a better movie than The Flash.
the movie went on a weird tangent about Back to the Future too, so
yeah, exactly.
Why can't you?
You know what? Good point. The last thing I have in my notes here is I like the idea of the tooth coming back at the end when like it just falls out of him. It's like,
oh yeah,
that's a great ending shot, especially if this is like one of the last DCEU movies. It's like, what a great way, just the Flash getting his tooth knocked out and smiling is.
I mean, the last shot is just Aquaman lying drunk in the puddle, in a puddle on the street.
Yeah, that too. You know what, either way it works as an ending for this franchise. Just embarrassing,
it's weirdly fitting.
Yeah, oddly fitting, just embarrassing all the way through. What a movie.
Just so much to.
There is a lot, yes, and I feel like there's a lot more I could go into and dissect, but like I've only seen this movie once, but like I'm still like wrapping my head around a lot of these choices. And yes, it's bad, don't get me wrong, but I love that it's this bad, you know? Like,
it's fascinating.
Like, I can't stop thinking about it. And it's something I want to experience again and again just to see, like, how baffling it is. It's no Morbius by any means. Like, Morbius is its own failure, and I love that movie with all my heart because of how much of a failure it is. But I feel like this is also in its own realm. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, like, it's just like, they're both spectacular failures in different ways. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like, I feel like Morbius had nothing going for it, but like it tried compensating, and so then it tried to really try, obviously in all the wrong ways, and so then it just became this clusterfuck that you just can't help but be fascinated by. Whereas
I just realized that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and then whereas the Flash is, you know, I feel like the Flash had more at its disposal. It had more cameos. It had more fan service. It had a bigger budget, I would imagine, and yet,
yeah, it did.
And yet, it feels even emptier than Morbius did. Like, and also, I feel like Morbius was easier to follow. Like, it's it has a lot more going for it. But even still, like, Morbius did not have the Ezra Miller controversy attached to it, whereas this movie does. And I feel like that adds on a whole other level of failure to it, and that just makes it all the more fascinating.
Jared Leto is also pretty controversial.
Yeah, but Jared Leto didn't really go on a crime spree in Hawaii. He's just a bona fide weirdo, which, I mean, they all are. He just, like, what has he done? He mailed rats to Margot Robbie, and now he's like climbing a hotel in Germany, I think.
Both movies are just like, both Morbius and The Flash are about just these weirdos both movies are about these two weirdos as the stars, and they both so happen to have Michael Keaton as fan service.
That's very true. Very true. What are the odds?
You can't write this shit.
You can't write this shit. It is baffling. I don't want to say I love this movie, ironically, just yet, but I'm getting there. Like, the more I think about it, the more fascinated I am by it, that I need to study it. So, is there anything else you wanted to say about it before we wrap up on this conversation of The Flash?
I mean, what else is there to talk about?
I know. There's just so much. There's so much.
I guess I could say it was fun marketing it.
No, that's true. That's true. That's true. So do you want to get into a little bit of that, actually?
All right. So I work at a trailer house. A trailer house is basically a separate office that cuts advertising and trailers and TV spots for any entertainment studio, and one of those movies that I was cutting on was The Flash. I saw it probably for the first time like 6 months ago. And you would not believe like just how fucking weird an experience it was to see this early cut and then just go on for the past 6 months seeing every little bit of press coming out about every little trailer, every little spot, knowing what's going to happen in the future. It's just so, I can't tell you how weird of an experience that was.
You were like the Flash looking into the future.
Literally. He's just like me.
He's just like me, for real.
The movie was pretty fun to market though. There was a lot of action to really cut on. I think the most popular shot was that scene where their feet touch and then they create this like massive explosion in the battlefield.
Yeah, that's a cool shot for what it is.
Yeah. That's about all I can say without getting into specifics.
Of course. I mean, because Ezra Miller's at your house holding a gun up to you. Of course.
Yes. He's right here. You want to say something to him?
No. I'm good. All right. Well, before we wrap up, let's just tie this back into this podcast. Whether we would A, watch it again, and B, own it. What say you, Bamason?
Never own it. I've already seen it probably 5 times at this point, so I think I'm good.
Would you ever watch it again?
If I would, I would probably be tied down to a chair, Clockwork Orange style.
Stop it, please! I beg you. Yeah, you know what? I don't blame you.
Just like, let me put this. Me enjoying the VFX.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Well, as for me, I know I just went on a rant talking about how terrible this movie is. I need this on Blu-ray. I need to experience it again. Obviously, not anytime soon. I think I can wait. You know, I'm not the second this comes out on Blu-ray, I am not flocking to Target to buy it. Like, you know,
you're not flashing to Target.
I'm not flashing to Target. I'm not. Yeah, no. Flash to Target faster than Ezra Miller going on a crime spree when he sees a Hawaiian. No, I will not be doing that. I think it has a place in my collection just for the absolute batshit insanity it ensues. It's not something I'm definitely going to go... I'm not going to go out of my way to get it just yet, but someday I'd love to revisit this just to see it again in all its shitty glory. I will never let Warner Brothers live this one down. Never, ever. If I will not let Sony live down Morbius, I will not let Warner Brothers live down The Flash. So, That's where I'm at for sure.
Yeah, it's just so it's. I imagine people will still be talking about it in not like the right way.
Exactly. Yeah, no, this is absolutely gonna be something we're gonna remember for years to come. I feel like whether or not it'll reach the levels of Morbius, who can tell? But you know, it's definitely something to make fun of for sure.
Yeah, it's fucking nuts.
Yeah. Well, speaking of nuts, let's get nuts.
Yeah.
By talking about a real movie. Hey, let's talk about a movie that, you know, is actually real and has this thing called a story and has characters. I know we just talked about something that claims to be a movie, but let's talk about something real for once. So we watched The Flash, and to prepare for The Flash, we watched Batman 1989, the Tim Burton movie, because I happen to own it on VHS.
Yeah, the occasional VHS.
The occasional VHS. Well, so here's a weird thing before we get into it. I just want to say I actually do own it also in a Batman collection Blu-ray that has like all 4 of the Burton Schumacher Batman movies. And so I do want to eventually return to that Blu-ray to talk about all 4 of those movies someday. I was not going to make you watch through all 4 of them to talk about that Blu-ray because I figured we would have plenty to talk about with Flash. So, you know, it's just going to be on the Batman VHS today. But we'll get into the VHS specifics later on. Bamason, what'd you think of Batman 89?
I gotta be honest, it was all right, I guess.
Yeah, I've kind of noticed like a lot of you guys aren't really liking this movie that much anymore. Because I feel like I think I saw like Chaos, who I follow. He also kind of like gave it like a similar score of like 3 stars. I think that's what you gave it.
Yeah.
Which obviously means you guys hate it. You know, as we all know,
it with
6 out of 10 equals 0.
I hate it. I hate it so much.
Yeah, exactly. Just like how I hate Skinamarink. Yeah, no. So I can kind of see that. I still really like it a lot. I can't say this. I can't say I'm like. I will not. I'm not one of those people that considers Keaton their first and only Batman. Like I am still very much a hardcore Dark Knight trilogy fan. But that's just me because that's what I grew up on. But I feel like there is a lot to appreciate with Batman 89, but you do kind of have to grow up with it to truly appreciate it, I think, you know?
Yeah. I'm definitely also more of a Bale kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for Batman 89, I think the thing that just doesn't work for me is how much they focus on Vicky Vale.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like she's not really interesting of a character.
No, she's not. Which, fun fact, did you know that Burton got the idea of the character of Vicky Vale from the I was like one of the Batman serials from the 40s. One of the characters is named Vicky Vale, and she's a journalist, and that's where he got the idea of Vicky Vale, because I don't think she's an original comic character. I think that's where he got her from. Was like really? I can't remember if it was the Batman and Robin serial or if it was the Batman serial where like he fights the Japanese mafia or something. Those serials are for a different episode.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, but yeah, no, that is something I definitely noticed with this movie and Batman Returns, but that's a whole other episode as well. But like especially in this movie, yeah, Batman rarely ever shows up. I don't think Bruce Wayne's the main character. You definitely get the feeling that like he's there, but like I feel like we get a little more screen time with Vicky. We get a little more with that journalist guy. I forget his name, I'm blanking on it.
Oh yeah, he had a really funny line because of the way he delivered it, but I also watched it while I was high.
Yeah.
So
is it the scene where he goes to like the cartoonist who draws him like the Batman? He's just like, what a dick.
I think it was, but
yeah,
it was
Knox. It was Alexander Knox, the journalist, who's just like, what's this Batman guy? You even get more of the Joker, I feel like, in this movie, because
the Joker is like the best part of the movie, definitely.
Yes, because it's Jack Nicholson.
It's Jack Nicholson, and he does a great job.
That's what I love about like these different interpretations of Joker. Like, you definitely get the best Jokers are obviously very unique, but they still get that Joker-ness down a lot. And I feel like that's what I like about Jack Nicholson's Joker, is that he definitely plays more into like the gangster side of Joker, but like he still has like a sense of humor. He still has that weird smile. Like, he still has the white and the green. Like, it still works, you know?
He's got the laugh down perfectly.
Oh, the laugh is so beautiful. I love it so much.
Like the scene where he first sees his face with the surgeon and he like slams the mirror down.
Yeah.
Like, that was genuinely pretty creepy.
It was really creepy. I love that scene because it's parodied in a Simpsons episode when Lisa gets braces and she's like, the mirror, and like she smashes the mirror. I always think of that scene. That's the iconic Lisa needs braces episode. Sorry, I had to bring up Simpsons again.
Why would you do this?
I know, it's me. But
we're talking about Batman, not the Simpsons. God.
Yeah, but yeah, no, you're absolutely right though. Like, we don't get a lot of Batman in this movie. Even though it's called Batman. Like, it's just such a weird choice that these movies make, and especially this one, how like, because like we don't really meet Bruce Wayne until like 10 or 15 minutes into the movie, because like we see Batman when he beats up those thugs, but like we don't see Bruce Wayne for like a while. It's really weird.
We don't see Bruce Wayne for the first time till like that party scene, right?
Yeah, we don't. Yeah, no, that's when they like show up and she's like, hey, excuse me, do you know which one is Bruce Wayne? He's just like, oh, I don't know. Like, yeah, that's the first time we meet him. And it's just really, again, like I wouldn't necessarily mind if the characters we did get, you know, Vicky Vale and Alexander Knox were a little more interesting as characters. And well, because like I do like the Joker a lot, but like then we're spending a lot of time with Vicky, and Knox I'm fine with, but like he's not that interesting of a character. And especially Vicky, who's not. Like, I know Kim Basinger is trying, but like, you're just the screaming lady. Like, that's all you really are, lady. Like, there's a reason you didn't come back in Batman Returns. Like,
oh yeah, I forgot she wasn't in Batman Returns.
She's not very interesting. So like, and I get what she's supposed to be. She's supposed to be the audience, like, you know, being this vessel, like looking in on this Bat character. But it's like, I don't know, it just doesn't work. Like, I really feel like this is much better established in something like Batman Returns. Like, I feel like Selena Kyle is a much better character to view that kind of stuff through. But again, Batman Returns, I could talk about it, but I feel like we should save that for like, you know, a different episode. So I won't mention that here
later.
Yeah. One thing I'll say about Batman is there's some really good lines in this movie. Obviously there's the iconic "you are my number one guy," or I should say it in the Nicholson way, "you are my number one guy." Like, it's, oh my god, it's so good.
There's the never rub another man's rhubarb, which I still don't understand.
That line has never left my head ever since I first realized what he said. I'm like, what the fuck does that mean? Never rub another man's rhubarb. To this day, it lives in my head rent free. I'm just like, what did he mean by that? What is happening in this scene?
What does he mean? Someone should make like those, you know, the "does he know" or "what was he cooking" thumbnails. Someone should make them for Jack Nicholson Joker and just put like, what did he mean?
What did he mean by never rub another man's rhubarb? Yeah, it's oh god, it's such good lines in this movie. I love them so much.
It's perfectly corny.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like it is strange, like when it is kind of boring when we are focusing mainly on Vicky, but like there is that comic book corniness that I feel like does transcend through. And I feel like Burton was like the perfect director for this kind of version of Batman. And that's what I like about this movie, is that it has the Batman mythos pretty well, but like it also feels like a Burton movie, you know, with like the Danny Elfman score and the weird shots. There's this really cool shot that they use a lot in the Burton movies, is when, you know, you're looking straight up at the sky and you can see the bat signal, and like the buildings are kind of curved in a way that just looks like they're like falling. Like, you know, like the shots I'm trying to talk about, like they're just shot really strangely, but like it's that warped perspective that I feel like Burton really nails, and I really like.
I need to see a picture. I need to see a picture of that or something.
Yeah, it happens a couple of times in these movies, but like especially in this one, like it looks really interesting because like it doesn't make any sense like visually, but it's striking nonetheless, and I really like that. It kind of reminds me of, you know, like the whole Burton and Batman kind of coming together. It reminds me of when Wes Anderson made Fantastic Mr. Fox, because like that's a very good adaptation of the story, but it's still quintessentially a Wes Anderson film. So like I feel like that movie is kind of like that, where it's like it's a neat Batman adaptation, but it is quintessentially a Tim Burton movie.
Or with Dune, like how it's a great adaptation of the book, but it's still a Denis Villeneuve movie.
That's another great example. Yeah, exactly. I love when movies can have the best of both worlds, because guess what? They can. Wink, wink. Flash 2023 that had no personality.
that had no characteristics of Andy Muschietti.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, you say Vicky Vale is not something you're pretty much not a fan of. Were there other things that kind of bothered you about this movie?
I think the fight choreography was kind of like, I get it was like, I get it wouldn't be like Dark Knight good, but there was scenes where it would just be like that scene I described in my Letterboxd review, where you have Batman in a clock tower, and then this guy jumps from behind and misses him and falls through the floor. I don't get what the point of that was.
I love that shit. Yeah, it's so funny. It's like something out of a Looney Tunes cartoon, how the guy's just screaming and then he just falls through the floor. Yeah,
he didn't even touch Batman. He just like stepped to the side.
Yeah, it is jarring for sure, and I feel like I can kind of see though. Yeah, like action like that. Obviously, that one example is a great example of this working and being really funny, but I can definitely agree that like the action beside that is like weird and clunky and kind of awkward, and the bat suit is also very weird and clunky and kind of awkward when you look at it. Like I like the grunginess of it, but at the same time it does look a little weird and wonky at times, and you're just like, how does he realistically move like that, you know? Like,
yeah, like I think it's just another thing about the movie is just how he can't turn his head.
Yeah,
he has to.
I like it sort of that he can't turn his head, but it is like you do have to question it. Like, okay, why? Like, why did he design his suit like that? Why would you
design like this? Like, especially comparing it to like the Nolan Batman suit that looks authentically like it can stop bullets and really fuck you up if the right person was wearing it.
Yeah, exactly.
With this one, I'm just like, there's no way that this spandex looking, it's spandex. It's literally spandex.
Yeah, it does not look like it could stop a bullet for sure. Yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean. Yeah, no, I think that is kind of the big thing with this movie, is that like you really did have to grow up with it, which I sort of did. I don't know, when was like the first time you watched it, would you say?
I think the first time I watched it was I watched it pretty late, so I probably watched it for the first time in quarantine in 2020.
Okay.
So I didn't really. I remember seeing clips of like Jack Nicholson's Joker, and I remember the nostalgia critic Diet Coke commercial for like
Diet
Batman Return.
Coke.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
But I didn't like actually experience it for the first time till like 3 years ago.
Okay. Yeah, no, I totally get that. Yeah, it is a very weird movie. And that's the thing with Tim Burton is that, we've really idolized early Tim Burton as like this flawless stuff. And then like later on, that's when he started making the bad shit. But like there are some really weird movies in his filmography, even early on. Like Edward Scissorhands, I've never really been a fan of. Beetlejuice is kind of weird. Like, and even Batman Returns was just such a weird movie, like when it first came out. So like Burton has always had kind of a strange filmography for sure.
He's always been a weird guy.
He's always been a weird guy. That much we know. But I'm talking like the movies themselves are kind of told weirdly, where you're just like, this is not that great when you get down to it. Obviously, he has some really good stuff. Have you ever seen like Ed Wood, the movie with Johnny Depp?
I need to see that.
Oh, it's
like,
so good.
I heard it's really good.
That I would consider like my favorite Tim Burton movie. Like it's really, really good because like it feels like a love letter to this person that Burton clearly loves and respects, but like it is also like a good like Tim Burton movie and how it like it's told weirdly and it's shot weirdly, but like weird in a good way. And so I feel like there are some of those early Burton films that probably just don't work for everybody. Like I just said, like I would say Edward Scissorhands is like my version of what you would say is like Batman 89. Like you understand why it works, but like you're not really emotionally connected to it as much.
I think Edward Scissorhands is kind of weird in like it's been a while since I've seen it, so I need to watch it again in order to get an opinion. But I remember liking it. Like there's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, which I wasn't a fan of.
Yeah, that nightmarish movie. Oh, it occurred to me within the past couple of years. I'm just like when I rewatched it, like I can't remember when, but like a couple of years back, I rewatched it as an adult, and I'm like, oh my god, this movie scarred me in some ways. Like, how did I watch this as a child and still remain relatively normal? like
I grew up with the Gene Wilder version, and this one was just kind of what the hell.
Yeah, I grew up with both as well. I definitely appreciate Gene Wilder's version as like an actual movie, whereas Tim Burton's movie I appreciate as like a psychotic breakdown sort of way. You know how you're just like anybody who watches this could probably have a mental breakdown just watching it because it's just so weird and out there. But yeah, totally.
Then there's Corpse Bride, which mid.
Yeah, never really been huge in Corpse Bride.
Alice in Wonderland. How does this have a 3.1 on Letterboxd?
This was probably when people. I mean, to be fair, it was made before the whole Disney live action remakes, and so like I guess people were willing to forgive this. They were not as harsh towards it, and also, Tim Burton still had some sort of good graces with the public, so they were willing to forgive it. I don't know, like I'm sure a bunch of Tumblr girls at the time were just like, sweet, a new movie to make my entire personality. Oh
my god, a new goth emo boy to obsess over.
Yeah. Okay. There's like about a million others you could have chosen from. But
I think my favorite Tim Burton movie would probably be Sweeney Todd.
I still haven't seen that one. I've heard sort of really mixed things on it, but generally good stuff.
I really liked it. Like it was I don't think you see Tim Burton go full gore. This movie he goes full gore. Ooh.
Have you ever seen Sleepy Hollow?
No, I haven't.
Okay, that one's got some really good gore in it from what I remember.
And onto the watch list it goes.
Yeah, no, I totally recommend. I need to rewatch that movie someday and compare it to like the Disney Sleepy Hollow, because I feel like both of those movies are really cool in their own way. But anyway, Batman. I mean, is there really anything else you have to say about Batman?
Oh yeah, there was Prince.
Oh yeah.
I was never listened to Prince that much, so I don't really have an opinion.
Yeah, I've never really been huge on Prince either. Like, I like some of the songs I've heard from him, like Little Red Corvette, When Doves Cry. Like, I like those songs, but I can't really say I adore them. So, but yeah, no, he made songs for the movie because I guess he wanted to. Didn't he like dress as like Batman and the Joker at the same time and like did a music video for this movie?
Wait, what?
Am I remembering that correctly? I feel like I have a memory of like him like being like in sort of like a two-faced fashion where like one side of him is the Joker, the other side is Batman. I might be making that up.
Yeah, he did that.
Oh, he did? That. Okay.
I'm looking at it now, and yeah, he did that.
Oh, that's so typical.
What an interesting guy.
Yeah, what an interesting guy. All right, do you have anything else before I get into this VHS tape? Because I have a couple of things I want to mention about it.
Not really, no. Talk about the occasional VHS.
All right, well, the occasional VHS tape. So first off, I just want to say the design of the box is really cool because it's literally just the bat symbol in this like completely black background. And that's it. It doesn't say Batman. It doesn't say like who's in it. It's just the bat symbol. Like, it's brilliant marketing, I would say. Like, obviously on the sides it says Batman and it advertises Nicholson and Keaton being in the movie. But like the full cover is just nothing but the bat symbol. It's really, really cool. And the VHS does come with commercials at the beginning. Two different ones. So one was a Diet Coke commercial with Alfred. It's not the one that Nostalgia Critic talked about. But it's one where like he's still like driving to like go pick up a shipment of Diet Coke, and Alfred's like on the phone with somebody who's just like, yes, Mr. Wayne is on his way to pick up the Diet Coke, and like, you know, Alfred's like drinking a Diet Coke while he's on the phone. It really strange. It's like, okay, well now I guess a bunch of Batman fans are gonna go and buy Diet Coke. Good job.
Diet Coke.
Diet Coke. Yeah. And here's another really interesting commercial that it has on there. So it has a commercial with Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck, voiced by Mel Blanc. And you can tell because he sounds really old and it's really depressing. But he's basically advertising a Warner Brothers hat. So, okay, let me explain. There's this toll-free number that they advertise where they say like, oh, call in and get a bunch of Warner Brothers merch or whatever. But then they really want to push this Warner Brothers cap, like this hat you wear, and then you can wear it whenever you watch Warner Brothers movies on VHS. Huh? It's really strange. So then like, and Daffy's like really, really hard pressed about this hat that you have to wear when watching Warner Brothers movies. First of all, what? Who in the hell like actively wears a hat while watching a movie? Like, that's just strange to me. But also, he even says, he's just like, no, pause the VHS, go and call this number and buy this hat. And it's like, okay, I'm going to pause the movie, buy this hat, wait a couple of days for the hat to be shipped to me. Actually, this was back in the day. It probably would have taken weeks. So like, can I watch my fucking movie without having to wear this hat? Like, and guess what? This was years ago. This toll number probably doesn't work. So it's like, okay, if I pause the movie, I'm going to be waiting for months for the stupid fucking hat. It's like, I have to watch this movie now for the podcast, Daffy. Like, I have to. Don't stop it. What are you doing?
I don't want your shitty hat.
I don't want your shitty hat. I mean, I do, but like, I don't want it at the moment. But you're telling me I can't watch this movie unless I have this stupid hat? Like, it's really, really bizarre. Those were the only commercials that played before the movie. It was really bizarre.
The Warner Brothers hat stays on during sex.
Yeah. So, The only other thing I wanted to mention was I also, weirdly enough, have this movie's score on CD. Yeah, no, it's the Danny Elfman score, and I listened to it yesterday, and oh, brother, it's really cool. I love the cover it has on the CD because it's literally the shot of like the bat, the bat ship just like flying up in front of the moon for like that split second, and
oh
yeah, that's a really cool shot, and I like that it's the cover of this CD. So, but yeah, I'm keeping the CD because I love this movie score. Really good music by Danny Elfman, and I'm keeping the VHS. Like, it's a really neat bit of old nostalgia. Like, it's a neat time capsule to like how they marketed this movie back in the day. I love the cover. I think it's a really cool cover of just the bat symbol in this black background. It's really, really cool. You know, it doesn't look great on VHS quality. Obviously, no movie looks great on VHS because it's VHS. It looks like dog shit. But, you know, I do have the Blu-ray, that Blu-ray pack with this movie on it, and I'll probably talk about that at a later date someday. But for now, I like having this movie on VHS. I think this is a really cool VHS, and yeah, it has a place in my collection for sure.
If they wanted to market the Flash properly, they would have just had the bat symbol on a poster and then just in red Comic Sans the Flash.
Yeah, I mean that's basically what they did. All right. Anything last minute before we call it a day, Bamason?
Nothing. I got nothing.
All right, that's totally fine. Well, then this is the part of the show where we wrap things up. So, dude, shout out your stuff. Where can people find you?
I'm on YouTube and Letterboxd at Mr. Bamason, and yeah, I've got literally nothing going on.
No future movies you got to edit trailers for? I get that.
I can't say.
Ooh, twiddling my fingers in excitement. Oh, that's okay. Your links will be in the description below. Hey, thanks for coming on and talking about The Flash and Batman. You know, there was nobody else I could have brought on to talk about this, really.
Oh yeah. So. It was good to be back.
Yeah, totally.
You could have just CGI'd me in there.
That is true. I do have the technology to do that. I don't. Oh, well, yeah. Thanks for coming on.
Just have me staring blankly at you, just like, so what did you think of The Flash?
Oh yeah, just staring on with indifference as your universe just completely collapses. But yeah, so yeah, thanks for coming on, and thank you, the listener, for listening to this podcast. If you want to support the show, give a like, give a comment. Listen to us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, or YouTube is fine too. You know, whatever. It's not a big deal anyhow. But yeah, thanks for watching, and always remember, never, under any circumstances, rub another man's rhubarb.
Never.
To